I remember I walked up into St James's and my hands, everything, my whole body just lit up. I've got goosebumps all over my skin.
I get those goosebumps. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around you. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that.
Surprise! We're back again. I hope you missed us because we are back for more tonight. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, the fully loaded transfer show. Keeps on rolling on Loaded Mag NUFC, and we are back with an absolute cracker tonight as we welcome on Sky Sports own Keith Downie, and he'll be on in just a second. So, welcome to everyone in the chat. There's a few tuners in there.
Yes.
If you're coming into the chat, get your tunes out and we'll give you a shout out. That is for sure. Welcome everyone in the chat. People are streaming in right now. Yes, Geordie Tune for life with the tunes. I love it. Great to have you. And I'm sure there's a few more as well. But boys, Daz, Chris, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
All good, Pete. All good with me. I took a half day today. It was my little boy's sports day at school, so I went to that, and it's an absolutely lovely day. The sun hasn't gone down yet here. It's beaten in, so it's turning me red here on the screen. But all good. Looking forward to chatting to Keith and talking a bit more about Newcastle transfers, like we seem to do every day.
Yeah. Regular occurrence now, Chris. How are you, fella? How's things?
Good, mate. Yeah, similar to Zaz. Been enjoying the weather as best I can. Obviously, in between little breaks in work and stuff, so I've been popping outside now and again. But yeah, really nice day. Busy day in work, but getting to the point now where I know where I am. Certainly for this week, anyway, which is good. So hopefully tomorrow and Friday won't be too bad. But yeah, can't lie. It's transfer season, so I'm buzzing anyway. And getting the likes of Scott Wilson on, Keith Downey, keep them coming. Keep them coming. As long as everyone at home's enjoying it, which I'm assuming they are. It's just great. It's great being a part of it, and it's great hearing the thoughts of all these national journalists. So yeah, very, very excited to have Keith on this evening. And how are you, Pete?
Yeah, not too bad. Work out the way. All over and done with for another day. And it's just it's nice to kind of end the day to talk transfers and Newcastle United with you boys. So yeah, looking forward to that. That's for sure. But yeah, the tunes are starting to drop in. Seen a few more. I think Magpie Unite I saw just clip up on there. Tune in. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's great to see. Definitely. But look, we've got Keith. Keith's just on his way. He's dropped us a message. He's coming back, just traveling back. He'll be on any second, just loading up. But boys, interesting what's happening at this moment in time, and we'll get Keith's thoughts on it. Things are moving with Kelly a lot faster than I think people thought. But
Time out. Sorry, I wanted to get in with something because I forget it otherwise. Chris, you have to remind me later on in the show because we've got Loaded Ultras member draw as well. So when you said things are moving, Pete, I see a spinning wheel here in front of me and it's moving round and around. So we'll get to that later on. If you want to take it now, we can, but maybe we'll leave it till later on. And if you're not a member, hit that join button and you can become a Loaded Ultra. But sorry, Pete, back to you. Things are moving with regards to Kelly.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, just before that, before we get on to the transfers, you mentioned it. Thank you to all the new members that have come in recently, and you will definitely be part of the draw. And if you're just becoming a member tonight, or in the days to come, don't worry, because as been mentioned, there will be many of prize draws coming in as the summer progresses. So there'll be way more chances to win a prize as part of our loaded ultras. So yep, the ultras are in the house. Great to see them in there. If you want to be an ultra, come and join along. That is for sure. But look, we'll talk about this when Keith comes and joins us very, very shortly, because he is on his way. However, things have slightly moved forward with this situation because we have movement on Lloyd Kelly. We were expecting within the next week something might materialize. Oh no. They wanted to move a lot quicker than that, because we had confirmation from our good friend of the channel, Dharma Chef, tweeted out, put a video out as well, that Lloyd Kelly is arriving. Yes.
Okay.
Watch that show. It's a cracker with Domish and Pete Graves. Definitely go back and watch that one. But Kelly is on Tyneside for a medical, apparently, or is in a Newcastle United medical of some form. And look, he will be a Newcastle player very, very soon. Quite possibly, maybe even announced before the week's out. So look, from your perspective, boys, again, really happy with that. Is it a case of job done, on to the next? Or are you still a little bit nervous if something could happen? Is that Tosin deal still like playing with the mind a little bit? What are you thinking?
No, this is done. This is done. I think it's been done a good while as well. He knows what he's walking into with Eddie, and he'll be happy with that. And yeah, even the Bournemouth guys were like a couple of days ago were had it nailed on as well. So be a massive shock now if something didn't happen, unless something popped up in the medical, of course. Then there'd be questions. But no, it's done. Done deal.
Done. Chris, is it done for you?
Yeah, it's done. Absolutely. I think I've always felt confident on Kelly, mainly because of his relationship with Eddie Howe. And obviously Eddie Howe, I think we spoke about it before, Eddie Howe was the one who signed him for Bournemouth. So I always felt confident that Lloyd Kelly would end up joining Newcastle. I mean, we've been linked with him for a couple of windows now since Eddie Howe's come in. Eddie Howe, a keen admirer of him. And the fact that he's a free transfer, I think Newcastle will have done everything they possibly could to persuade him to come to Newcastle. The fact he's coming for his medical, I think that says a lot. I think it's now just a case of just waiting for the here we go. Even though we've had the here we go, but I like to see the here we go with the with the scarf and the player in the kit and stuff like that. So I think it's a matter of days. But yeah, very excited. I still think it's a fantastic signing. I noticed on X or Twitter that there was a lot of deliberation over how tall Lloyd Kelly was. I've seen Kev Lawson getting involved in it, which was quite funny. So yeah, I think Lloyd Kelly, it's been confirmed as 6'2". So for anyone asking, he is 6'2". But yeah, I think he's going to be a real shrewd addition to the Newcastle squad. I think the fact that he's coming in as a player who can play either at left centre back or left back is going to be massive for Newcastle. And if that's the kind of upgrade that we're getting, bearing in mind he's going to be replacing Paul Dummett, it kind of tells you what this window could be. It could be a really, really good one for Newcastle United, and it's just going to make us stronger as a squad.
Interesting. Very interesting. The tunes are still coming in. I'm loving it. That is for sure. That's one thing we didn't do for this show, just as Keith's about to come and join us. We didn't highlight how many likes you wanted tonight. So what we're going for? We've got over 300 in the chat right now, waiting for Keith to come and arrive any second. Now, what we're going for?
I don't know. Well, with Pete Graves, we said 350, and then Darmish come on, and we upped it to 400. But that got I think that could have got about 800 likes or something crazy like that. So, but I'm going to say 375. That's reasonable. 375, because there's over 300 people in the chat already, so 375 doable.
Is that it?
Come on, do it.
375, seriously? I thought you got higher than that. But no, let's get that target done, and then we'll move forward. So we've got well over 3 million.
Unless Pete, there's a prize of mini radiators on offer. Then...
What did I tell you, boys? Get rid of it. Don't want to see it again.
No.
Winding it up. Stop now.
They're here to stay.
They look beautiful. They look beautiful.
I'm never living that down. Never ever living that down. Right. Look, one thing we'll move on to, just as Keith said, setting up to come and join us. I did find this funny. I'm not going to lie. It came out in the last couple of hours with regards to Dan Ashworth. I thought this was hilarious. I'm not going to lie. Mark Douglas of the iPaper reporting that Dan Ashworth held a meeting at Wolves after being on gardening leave without informing Newcastle United. The long-running saga no closer to resolution. I want to ask Keith about this when he comes on as well. But boys, it's just going back to worse if you're Dan Ashworth. Surely this is an absolute comedy situation for Newcastle. It's laughable that this kind of stuff was happening after he effectively left the club. But surely he's got no leg to stand on with this arbitration.
He's really made a fool of himself, hasn't he? And the credibility that he did have is slowly dissolving a bit. Now he'll still want to be at Man United no matter what. I think that I read as well that, now I don't know how true the figures are, but what I read was they offered 2.6 million and they upped it to 3, but Newcastle are saying 15. We want 15 for him, but they won't pay. But just show us the money and get this over with. I'm sick of it at this stage.
Exactly.
I think we're all show us the money, right? Yeah. Well, I think there's only one person we need to ask about this situation because he's in the green room. Let's get him in. Sky Sports own Keith Downey.
Welcome, Keith.
Hey lads, how you doing? You okay?
Good, mate.
Not too bad.
Sorry I'm late. Been running around like mad. I'd love to tell you where I've been this afternoon, but I might have to kill you. So I'll.
Don't do that, Keith. Come on, man. Honestly, we know how busy you are. So appreciate the time for you.
That's okay. How are you all doing? You okay?
Oh, good, Keith. Yeah.
Good, mate. Very good. Thanks. Yeah.
We're going to get straight into it because we were just having this conversation around Dan Ashworth. I'm not sure if you'd seen Mark Douglas had reported this today on the iPaper with regards to him holding a meeting in Wolves with regards to not informing Newcastle as well and looking like this situation is not going to be resolved anytime soon. Like, how long do you think this is going to go on for? Do you think this is going to be resolved in the summer? Like, what are you hearing from this perspective?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, from what I heard originally was that I don't think Newcastle were too happy with Manchester United potentially having the summer with Dan Ashworth at their disposal because he would potentially be able to tap into Newcastle's information. Remember, he's been privy to so much sensitive information for a couple of years now, and he will know exactly what Newcastle are going to do or going to try and do this summer in terms of transfer. So, look, I would not be surprised if this drags on until later in the transfer window, until it closes, probably. But you can also understand exactly why Manchester United want to get him in early as well. And we've heard Sir Jim Ratcliffe speak. You can tell he's frustrated at the situation. But look, if you're frustrated and you want the guy in, you need to put up or shut up. I mean, what we're talking £2 million, £3 million. Yes, that's probably a lot of money for a sporting director. But this was a guy who Newcastle fought, tooth and nail to get in the first place. So although I don't think Newcastle are likely to get the 15 and 20 million pounds that they would want, I think it's within everyone's best interest for them to come to some sort of resolution. I just don't see that resolution coming until after the summer transfer window because I think Newcastle feel that it would put them on the back foot and would give Manchester United a bit of an advantage this summer if it came to the fact that they were both in for the same player, or Ashworth remembered that there was a certain player Newcastle were targeting and that he had a release clause or he was available for a certain amount of money. So I don't expect it to be sorted soon. I think the Wolves stuff there that you mentioned, is it really that relevant? Not really. Look, I think we're probably trying to pick holes in what Dan Ashworth has done and what Dan Ashworth is doing right now. I think actually his son plays for Wolves as well. I think he's in the academy there. So look, I wouldn't read too much into that. I think you guys probably just need to try and focus on the new person, the new one who's going to come in. And I don't think you should worry too much about Dan Ashworth. I think that will get sorted out. I just don't think it will be sooner rather than later, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we obviously we missed out on Dougie Freedman. He decided to stay at Crystal Palace, a club that he knows really, really well and has an affection for and a connection for. But one of your colleagues, Dharma Sheff, mentioned not so long ago that talks had then continued with Johan Spores for the vacant sporting director role. Is this ongoing with those talks, or are there other people in the sort of pipeline? Like, what are you sort of hearing from your perspective?
Yeah, look, I still think there's a few involved. I don't think it's a case of just Spores. He's held talks. I'm told the talks have gone well. If they'd gone brilliantly well, perhaps he would have been appointed by now, and he hasn't. So look, I think there's still a few in there. Without doubt, Dougie Freedman impressed. I think Dougie Freedman was someone that Eddie Howe would have been keen to work with. Whether he would want someone that he hasn't really met before or hasn't come across, hasn't worked with before, I'm not too sure. And I would suggest that Johannes Spores falls into that category, whereas someone like Dougie Freedman is well known within English football circles, and I think that's someone that Eddie Howe would have liked to have joined the club. So look, big disappointment. I think Newcastle felt they were almost there in appointing Freedman, so they've had to kind of rip up and start again. But what they don't want to do is just take the next person on the list. They need to make sure it's the right person, and this is arguably the most important role at the football club in terms of bringing everything together. And although Dan Ashworth on the outside looked like he was doing a good job, I'm not so sure that all the cogs in the wheel were turned in the same direction. And I'm not sure if it was quite as happy a camp behind the scenes as perhaps many people thought. So perhaps him actually leaving in the long run might not have been the worst thing anyway. So look, it feels to me very much like this transfer window, it feels like Newcastle are perhaps parking it just now, and that they'll enter this transfer window, and between the ownership group, Eddie Howe and their existing recruitment team, I think they'll probably try and muddle through this transfer window, which, by the way, they've done before, and they've done to really good effect, certainly in that first transfer window when Eddie Howe came in and the summer after that. So it's not as though those that are left are new to the job. So I wouldn't worry too much about it at this moment.
Interesting. I think there is a question there that's just popped up on the screen from Ethan.
Exactly, Pete. There's one or two actually. Ethan's one is about is Paul Mitchell still of interest? And let's wrap it up with Mark's question as well. How about Hugo Viana as well?
Yeah, well, I think Paul Mitchell is certainly one that's been spoken about and spoken to. Whether he's still on the list or not, I'm not too sure. Really interesting one for me was the Thiago Pinto one, because I know he was very keen on the role. He was putting himself forward for it, and I think he was desperate to come in. But obviously Newcastle felt, they did speak to him, and I think Newcastle felt that perhaps he wasn't the right man, and he's ended up going on to Bournemouth, hasn't he? So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on there, because that was someone who Newcastle, I think, maybe just made an early decision on. I think Mitchell is one that's been spoken to. Whether he's still on the list, I'm not too sure. I just feel a little bit like it's been parked for now, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised for this transfer window to come and go with the existing recruitment staff that are already there. It would be quite difficult for a new sporting director to come in now and lead everything when the wheels are in motion with regards to the transfer window already. I mean, as you know, it officially opens on Friday. They've got a player in the door already in the shape of Lloyd Kelly, and it sounds like they're lining a couple more up. So could a new sporting director come in and make a difference this window? Probably not. It might be one for after the summer, I would suggest.
You are absolutely right. You've mentioned that we've got one in the door, and we were just touching on that before you came on, Keith. And Downey reported with the video of Lloyd Kelly arriving for his medical. You've reported on it as well, and saying that it's going to be agreement on a 5+1 year contract as a free agent. Now, the question I've kind of got for you, and I think a few fans have been discussing this on social media, is where do you think Lloyd Kelly is going to play? Because there's lots of kind of different opinions on this, and Lloyd Kelly's played in a few different positions for Bournemouth, and last season, and I'll just put this up on the screen, you can see, games at left back last season in the 23-24 season, you got 14 games, 7 games at centre back. He plays left centre back. Where do you think, in your opinion, that Eddie Howe's signing Lloyd Kelly for?
Yeah, I think he can play left back in a 4. I think he can play. I think he can play centre back in a 4. I think he can play left centre back in a 5. Equally as well, very athletic, versatile. And if you speak to Eddie Howe, anytime they bring a new player in, one of the first things he says, whether that be Anthony Gordon, Sandro Tonali, Dan Burn, the first thing he says about any new signing is someone who can play in a variety of positions. And that is, without doubt, one of the key attractions to any player he tries to sign. He bought Alexander Isak because he could play through the middle and he could play wide left, and he can play almost like a number 10 as well. He bought Anthony Gordon because he can play wide left, wide right. He can almost play as a number 9. We've seen that a couple of times for Newcastle and for the England under-21s. With regards to Kelly, it's an interesting one because, look, without doubt, primarily he's been brought in as a kind of stopgap for Sven Botman. He will, you would suggest, be a replacement for Sven Botman until he gets back up to his best. At that stage, I would think if Botman comes back the same player that he was when he first signed, I would suggest Kelly may move to left back at that point. What you have to remember in all of this, I sat here at the exact same stage last season, not the exact same stage, but before the season started, and talked about the new signings. We almost tried to pick 2 players for every position and who's the first choice and who's the second choice. Then literally 3 months later, there was 14 injuries and the whole thing just goes out the window. So what he needs to do is he just needs to load the team up with decent options in every position. For me, I know Lewis Hall has had a good end to the season. For me, the jury's still out in terms of how good he is defensively, and I'm not too sure if Eddie Howe will see Lewis Hall as his first choice left back to start the season, unless there's some big improvement made defensively in the summer. So that is why I think I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's fit, if they start the season with Dan Burn left-sided centre-half and Kelly left-back. Wouldn't be surprised to see that, but also you could play Kelly at left-sided centre-half, and you could even play Dan Burn at left back. I would think it would probably be the other way around. But I think of those 3, I honestly think of those 3 at the start of the season, despite his good end to the season, I still think Lewis Hall in a defensive capacity would be the odd man out of the 3 of those. I really do. And as much as he's been great going forward, for me, he's not been so good defensively. You can see that teams, particularly the last couple of games of the season, Brentford, they were targeting Hall at left back, and I'm not sure whether Hall may get brought back in a little bit further up the pitch to allow Kelly or Burn to go back to left back. You would suggest Burn centre back, Kelly left back, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way around. And then obviously when Sven Botman comes back into the picture, you've then got an even bigger conundrum, because you would suggest that Sven Botman at his best is the best of those 3 players. He walks into the team, and then it's probably Burn or Kelly at left back. Where Hall fits into that, not too sure.
Interesting. Daz, you had another question to add on to that?
Yeah, before we move sections, Keith mentioned as he came on that when keeping with the theme of the show, this kind of for your eyes only, the Bond team. We're going to give you a license to kill here, Keith. Can you give us a clue on what? There's 500 people in the chat. We're all waiting on a clue.
When I saw For Your Eyes Only in the title, I got a little bit of a fright. I was like, "Who's this?" If any of you have been out in Newcastle in the last 10 years, you'll know all about that place. Sorry, what was the question again?
Have you ever thought of going into politics, Keith? No. The question was, can you give us a clue on what you were alluding to when you joined?
What I was doing earlier on. Do you know what?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I can't, because I would probably get myself in a bit of trouble. But it's nothing to do with Newcastle or transfers, but just something a minor indiscretion needed sorted out.
Oh, that's fine. We won't go any further though. So
yeah,
no problem at all.
And it's nothing to do with For Your Eyes Only.
That's it.
Yeah, people will be pleased to hear. But go on.
People thought it was Ferran Torres or someone that you were having a conversation with in the background.
No, I would have told you about that. Don't worry.
But yeah, I feel like we're warmed up now with regards to talking about this. So you obviously talked about Lloyd Kelly coming in. Like, in your opinion, is that it in terms of defensive reinforcements? Could there be potentially another centre back in? And the reason why I say this, not necessarily linked to anything that you've reported, Keith, but there are players out there that we've previously been linked with. One of them is another left back in Kieran Tierney, apparently available at only sort of 10 million, as reports have suggested. But there's other reports in there from other centre backs that can potentially be linked with this. I know John Clare Todibo is linked to Man United, but we've been linked with him going down the line. Are they players potentially that Newcastle could look at to supplement Lloyd Kelly? Because we were looking at Tosin as well as Lloyd Kelly only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, look, I don't think they'll bring in another left-sided centre back, left back. I think Botman, Byrne, Kelly, and Hall, who's obviously, I've said already, probably a bit further forward, but can play there. I think that'll be their complement for next season. Matt Targett will go if they can get a taker. So no, the Kieran Tierney thing I don't see happening. But I actually last season, I remember at the True Faith end of season podcast, I said on stage that would be if I was the manager, that would be my first choice to bring him in. Obviously, I'm going to be a little bit biased because I'm Scottish and he's Scottish, but I think I actually remember at one stage kind of pleading with Eddie Howe and saying, "Look, don't go for a young. Get this guy. He's really cracking player." But I think there were concerns over his injury record, Kieran Tierney, and I think to throw him into the mix, even at £10 million, which is cheap for a player of his ability, I think to throw him into the mix would confuse things even more. I think they'll definitely bring in another defender. It was no secret that they tried to bring in Tosin from Fulham, and look, they've had their fingers burned a little bit with that. The players kind of used Newcastle's interest to stoke out Chelsea, get a better deal for him, and with that he gets to stay in West London, probably hasn't had to move house, and it's worked out perfectly for him. But poor old Newcastle have been caught up in the middle of that. And look, I think they'll have been very frustrated at that situation, but relieved that they've managed to get Kelly over the line. So at least they've got one of the two free agents in. But look, I think without doubt they need to get in another right-sided centre half. They can't go into this season with only Fabian Schär as the right-sided centre half. Kraft filled in towards the end of the season, but he's a huge downgrade on Schär. Lascelles did well when he came in last season, but is out until Christmas. So look, I think they will bring one in. Who they turn to now after the knockback from Tosin, I don't know, but I definitely think there'll be one more defender and a goalkeeper. If you're talking about the defensive ranks, I think there'll definitely be a defender and a goalkeeper before the window's closed. And remember, the window's not even open yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
and the rumour was already in overdrive, that's for sure. But you talked about the centre back situation. Just on that centre back situation, before we switch to goalkeeper, because that's an interesting one as well. If we are going to go for a right-sided centre back or right-sided defensive player, do you think they're going to go all out and sort of spend a little bit of money on getting that player? Or could it potentially be like a sort of a loan with a view to buy? With that Tosin deal not going in, have we had to kind of like shift the budget around now to maybe prioritize that situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, to have got Tosin for free alongside Kelly, you're getting two quality players who know the Premier League. Eddie Howe likes a lot. You'd have got the two of them in there for nothing. And yes, their wages will be bumped up a little bit to reflect that. There's no doubt Tosin would have been on good money at Newcastle. He'll be on better money at Chelsea. He's got a long contract there, I think, as well. It'll be interesting to see that. I don't know the definitive answer to that, whether they will bring in a player that they pay for or whether they will bring in a loan deal. I think it all just depends how quickly they get to work. If it gets to later on in the window, they might have to do a loan deal. I've actually, as we speak just now, guys, I've just had a message pop up on my phone there saying that Lloyd Kelly medical completed. So that's that as we speak. There you go.
Breaking news.
Just as I'm chatting to you. So that's that done. And I would expect him up here in the northeast. He's not coming up today. He'll be up either tomorrow or Friday. I don't think they've fully decided when they're travelling yet. He'll be up here to go through the normal formalities, getting the photographs taken, signing on the dotted line, and getting unveiled with the black and white scarf. So that's that. Literally, just as we speak, live, that medical completed for Lloyd Kelly. So there's always that worry, isn't there, when they go for the medical, that they might fail for whatever reason. I've been in that situation a number of times with players. Honestly, probably 4 or 5 times I can remember where we've said a deal's agreed, players signing, and in the field their medical. A couple of them have had to keep quiet over the years. A couple of them we've been able to report on, and there's always just that relief once it gets done. So just to go back to your question, I don't know what they'll do in terms of spending on a defender. Just reading between the lines, I would suggest they would prefer to use what funds they do have and what funds they hope to generate from sales to bring in forward-going players. And so if there was another defender available for free like Tosin, I think that would be the best situation for them. And, that was why they wanted to get to work really early in the window and bring in those two defenders. And that's why they'll be disappointed, because I think they had a couple of real gift horses there. And I think they'll be really gutted that only one of the two have managed to get over the line.
We've got a few tagged questions. I think, Chris, you put in our private chat. I don't know if we want to go to that next, because I want to go to goalkeepers and then talk about some of the recent links that are been going on, maybe further up the pitch. But what have we got in terms of some of those questions?
Yeah, I'm going to go straight to the super chat because we have 44 questions tagged already. But let's go to Aaron, and we're moving right up the pitch, Pete. We're going ahead of schedule. But Aaron asks, what is the likelihood of Miggy leaving in the summer? Surely Minteh has to get a run out this season. I suppose, linking into all that right winger talk.
Yeah, I feel for Miggy a little bit. I mean, he's settled here now. It took him a little while, really. It took him a year or two to really settle, and I think he loves it here. Look, you could tell by his body language that night against Aston Villa. Remember the 3-1 win away from home, which I think was the day after the window closed, and the club tried to to flog him. They tried to get rid of him over to Saudi, and he was the one that they knew that they kind of had to get rid of one to attempt to bring another one in, and Miggy was the one that they decided could go, like Alan St-Maximin the previous summer. And you could tell by his body language when he came on that night, he wasn't too happy with the manager, because he knew that he'd kind of agreed to allow him to go. So I do feel for him a little bit, but you look at Almiron, and although he works hard, and you guys will be able to answer this question better than me, but although he works hard and puts in 100%, I just feel that if you're going to get to the next level, I think you need to have a bit of an upgrade on Almiron in that position. And you see the numbers that Anthony Gordon's brought to the table this season. You need that from your right winger as well. And I don't think Almiron's been doing that. So the difficulty you're going to have with him is trying to get him out, because he dug his heels in January and he could do that again this summer. He's got a number of years left in his contract. He doesn't need to go anywhere. He's only going to go if the deal's right for him. So for me, if a big money offer came in from Saudi, it might turn his head. Other than that, it would be a move to a big European club, but it needs to be the right move for Almiron. And Newcastle, I feel, have been stuck in this position a couple of times over the last couple of transfer windows where they could do with getting rid of certain players and have not been able to. And you just worry a little bit that Almiron might be another one of those, because in this situation, he's the one that holds the power. He doesn't have to go if he doesn't want to.
Just a shout out to Anne Toonarmy, who became a Loaded Ultra, and she also gifted membership as well. So thanks very much, Anne, for that. Thanks to Aaron as well for the super chat. But I want to go next, and to bring us maybe back on track, I want to go to the question. Where is it gone to? Yes, it's from a guy that's looking after a bit of silverware for us at the moment. It's Jonathan Greenwood. Jonathan from Newcastle Fans TV. He says, "Evening, gents. Hope you're all doing well. Any latest on the goalkeeper situation? Trafford incoming, and any truth in Dubravka and the Celtic links?" And I'll add in Marmashvili into that as well. What can you tell us on the goalkeepers, Keith?
Yeah, hi Jonathan, how you doing, mate? Look, I think the Trafford thing sounds like it's probably going to happen. I think they're probably quite close in terms of evaluation. The word was that while the first offer had been turned down, they were still in talks. And normally when you hear that, it makes you think that the two parties are probably quite happy to come to some kind of conclusion, and they're probably just trying to eke a little bit more money out of Newcastle. So I think the Trafford situation makes sense for Newcastle, because look, there's without doubt Ramsdale was a number one choice. They would have loved to have brought him in. Eddie Howe's nephew Andy Howe, who's one of the head recruitment guys, he was the one that pretty much found Ramsdale a number of years ago and signed him from Bournemouth. He was struggling in Sheffield United academy or reserve side, and then turned him into like a whatever it was, £30 million goalkeeper when he sold him back to Sheffield United, or did he go straight to Arsenal? I can't remember, but he ended up developing him, spotting him, and it was one of his first big sort of deals that Andy Howe did. And look, without doubt, Eddie loves him as a player. I think his wages were prohibitive. He's in a lot of wages. I think it would have been really difficult to have brought him in on more than £100,000 a week when you've got Nick Pope on significantly less than that. And, you know, they're both probably at the same level in terms of England internationals, not a lot between them. And I think if Ramsdale comes in, he's only coming in to be number one. Nick Pope's not going to be happy being number two. And while that may happen probably next summer, given his age and his injury record, I just feel someone who's happier to come in, learn from Pope and be number two for whether it's half a season and a half. I think it just would fit better in the whole situation within the club. And I think Ramsdale coming in would have posed a real problem for Eddie Howe. The Georgian guy, Mamardashvili, I don't know too much about that one. I certainly don't think he was a number one choice. I think he is someone that they looked at. I think he would have fallen more into the category of Trafford, in that he could have come in and sort of proved himself. He's coming from a different country, but I think everything that Trafford's got and everything that Eddie Howe normally looks for in a player, you can see why that deal would happen. I know he had a difficult end to the season. I think he got dropped out of the team for the last couple of months of the season. But you speak to anyone involved in football, any players and young English players, you speak to agents, they all rate this guy. And, you know, I think although he's maybe not been perfect last season, I think the real feeling is that he will come good, much in the way that I suppose Anthony Gordon has in the last year.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, boys. I think we're all kind of slowly coming round to the idea, because Keith, we've talked about it on our Fully Loaded Transfer show, when the Trafford news was coming out, when Mamardashvili was kind of being talked about, certainly from the Spanish press more than the British press. We were quite excited by it because we'd seen him play. We know how good he is and what he could be at Newcastle United. But when the Trafford deal came out, it almost felt like, even on social media, it felt like a bit of a downer on that. But you see what, you know, what he can do and what he's capable of. I think, Chris, you put in our chat the video of the reaction of Cole Palmer and Anthony Gordon back in the Euros last summer, and they know him. They've talked about him and how good he is. And then when you look at that, I think it makes you start to think, could he be there? He's still got it all to prove. If he signs United, he won't be number one. Pope will be there, but he's got it all to prove that if he gets the opportunity, can he take it?
I'm just seeing one of the questions there, guys. Just saying that I think Trafford would be a good signing, and it's so difficult because see, when you watch him play, he looks quite small in the goals. Like, he looks quite small, but yet I was looking at the stats and he's like well over 6 foot, I think. So I don't know how he's managing to look so small. A bit like how Dean Henderson was a couple of years ago, when he went to Man United and they were just flying back. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But then if you look at Henderson now, he's had a great season at Palace. He's in the England squad. And I think with Trafford, there's real headroom for development there. And if you can get him in for 18, 20 million pounds, I think for, a young English goalkeeper like that, I think it probably is a no-brainer, and it allows Nick Pope to get another season or two as the number one. I just think, I mean, I'm sure you guys would have preferred the Georgian, or you would have preferred Ramsdale. I just feel Ramsdale in particular would have given them a short-term problem. I really do, both financially and in terms of who the goalkeeper is. So let's see what happened. But look, the one thing they can't do, they can't go into this season with the same goalkeepers, because I think we all will agree that Dubravka from Pope last season was a massive sort of downfall in terms of ability, and had Nick Pope been in goals for that last couple of months of the season, I think Newcastle probably do get European football. I think it was as simple as that. Yeah.
Let's go directly then to that question from Ethan, and then we might follow on with Dubravka and potential Celtic links. But Ethan asked, thanks for the donation, Ethan, is the club worried about Pope's shoulder injury? So it's both his shoulders now that have had operations, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think there is a worry when you have that. I mean, he's overcome it once, but you know what it's like if you've got a problem in one of your knees or one of your ankles. You probably overcompensate with the other one, and that's probably what he's done. And that's probably why he's injured it again. It's a bad injury to have for a goalkeeper, without doubt. And look, Nick Pope isn't getting any younger. I think he's 32, 33 now. But look, the way medical advances are right now, I would still expect him to come back. But what Newcastle need to make sure that they do is that they've got someone there who's an able deputy. And as much as Dubravka's done well over the last few years, I just felt he had a poor end to the season, and you could see, as I said already, the massive drop down between the two. So look, I think there is a concern over it. I think there's a concern over all the injuries they had last season. The club are looking into it this summer. And I would be amazed if they went this transfer window without bringing in at least one goalkeeper.
And then on thanks, Keith. And then on the outgoings, what about Dubravka to Celtic? Do you think there's something in that?
Yeah, I spoke to people at the club today regarding that deal. Look, I think they're aware of the interest. One source had told me earlier today, or an agent had got in touch earlier today to say that they had made contact with Newcastle and made an inquiry, but I was word back from contacts within the club is that isn't the case yet. So it could be one. I think they've got a couple of goalkeepers on their sites. Obviously, Joe Hart has hung up his gloves, so they need a goalkeeper. And when you look at Dubravka, where would he go next? Is he going to get a move to another English Premier League club as number one? Probably not. He wants to play football. He wants to be the number one. I think if he plays over extended period, he might get his form back. Somewhere like Chelsea would be a good move for him. But again, sorry, did I say Chelsea? I meant Celtic there. But the big issue there, again, for me is financially. I think he's on something like £40,000 a week at Newcastle. If he was to go to Celtic on that money, he would become the club's biggest earner, and I don't think they would be looking to do that to a goalkeeper. So again, there's that issue of Celtic might want him. Newcastle might be happy to take the money. I think there's rumours. I think I was told that they'd be looking for around about £3.5 million for him. If he was to go, can he get £40,000 a week? Probably not. Then you come to situation, what do we do? Do we loan him with an obligation or an option? And it gets a little bit messy, and it seems to be the situation with a lot of Newcastle's players that they're trying to get out the door right now. I mean, you saw Matt Ritchie last season sat there on big money because he wouldn't get anything like that in the Championship. So he just stayed on in Newcastle and didn't play for a year. And they're gonna have this situation with a few of the guys who've been there for a long time.
I was going to say, don't worry, Keith. Chelsea by everyone. That's why we just say Chelsea.
Yeah, that made a bit of very, I'm sure. Let's go back to back on track, Pete, and go with your. Still 44 more questions, but we'll get to a few of them. Let's follow your path.
Definitely. We'll switch tact a little bit because we've talked about players sort of potentially, coming in. Let's stick with what we talked about with regards to Dubravka's players going out, because I imagine before the 30th of June, we are going to need to do that. We're going to need to potentially move players out. And we've talked about Miggy, we've talked about Martin Dubravka, and one other player that has been rumoured potentially to move on, and I know you've touched on him briefly already, is Yankuba Minteh. Luke Edwards had touched on it with regards to the club being inundated with offers for him, and it has completely split the opinion of the fan base. Some fans understand why that might be happening. Some are saying, no way, we can't have him leave the club because of his talent and what he's capable of producing. But what do you think could happen in the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks with Yankuba Minteh? Is there a genuine chance that actually he could well be sold?
Yeah, I mean, the word I'm getting from sources within the club is that, yes, there is a lot of interest in him, and yes, he's likely to be sold this summer. I mean, I find it surprising that they wouldn't have a look at him first. I really do. But when do you have a look at him? Do you have a look at him pre-season and wait till the end of the window? Do you give him the first part of the season? I mean, you could give him the first half of the season until January, and he might not pull up any trees and he might lose the value. I mean, his stock is high at the moment after last season. Newcastle need money to comply with PSR. I think if you asked Eddie Howe who he would rather lose right now, whether it be Minteh, Callum Wilson or Almiron, I know what the answer would be. It'd be the guy who's never played for him before. And if they can get 25, 30, 35 million pounds in, I can see why it would be attractive to the club, but you've just got to hope this isn't going to be one of those situations where he goes on to be a world star and Newcastle have sold him for peanuts. We've seen mistakes made in the past with Ivan Toney. I think Mbabu was another one. I know he's fallen off the last couple of years, but they allowed him to go for nothing and he ended up moving on to Wolfsburg and things. You hope that's not a situation, but look, you have to trust the manager's judgment. And when the manager signs a player or the manager decides to keep or lose a player, he's taking more into it than just what that player's doing at another club. It's how they fit into his system, how they are behind the scenes, how they train. And I just would be surprised that he's not given him a chance first. And whether that be in pre-season or the first half of the season. But look, they need to generate funds now. And you would suggest of the three, Minteh, Almiron or Wilson, it would be the easiest deal for Newcastle to do because, the other two are probably going to dig their heels in to make sure they get the best deal possible. Whereas it sounds as though Minteh's probably got the pick of the clubs. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is. And there's one player you've not mentioned that has had a little bit of talk recently, and it's this man, Sean Longstaff.
He's the other one,
in the Mirror there was reports, and Leicester accounts have been touching on this as well. That they're potentially preparing a 15 million bid. Again, 1 year left on his contract. Are you throwing him in the mix as that pool of players that could potentially leave?
Yeah, I think he's in there. I don't think he's probably as high up the list as what the other three are. But Eddie Howe loves him. I think Leeds were looking at him as well. Had they got promotion up to the Premier League, but with him in the Championship, you would suggest that won't happen. Longstaff I think he's done enough over the last couple of years to suggest that he's a Premier League player rather than a Championship player. But I think the only situation with him is he's got a year left in his deal, and if they can't come to an agreement, then you need to sell. There's no point. I don't think there's any point in keeping him for another year and losing out on £15 million, which is gold dust to Newcastle at the moment. But I still wouldn't be surprised, given how much I know that Eddie Howe loves him. I wouldn't, and how much he loves playing for Newcastle, it's his hometown club. I would not be surprised if they manage to keep him and he signs a new deal. I think with his age, I think with his what he brings to the team and how much he kind of complements Bruno when he plays. And look, if you lose Sean Longstaff, as much as he's an academy graduate, if you lose Sean Longstaff and it's a pure profit deal in terms of what you're bringing in, you don't need to take into account how much you bought him for, like you would with Wilson or Almiron. Despite all of that, what would it take to replace someone like him in that midfield? You're talking about another 40 million, 35, 40, 50 million to replace him in there. And sometimes I think the grass is, you can look at it and you can say the grass is greener on the other side. And sometimes having someone like him around the place in terms of him, being a local lad, knowing what it's about, Newcastle fan, and he's dug in this last couple of years. He really has played all season with an injury. I just wouldn't be surprised if they came to an agreement with him. I would be more surprised if he left. But to answer your original question, I think he's definitely on that list of could-bes alongside the other three, but probably just not as high up the list as what those three are.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. We have been linked with a few centre midfielders. The likes of Edison back in January was one. Another player that's been linked with us, but not linked with us now, but potentially could be moving from AS Monaco is Yusuf Fofana. Fabrizio Romano reported on him. Boys, Chris, Daz, a player that you'd like at Newcastle United? We've talked about him before. What do you think?
Yeah, why not? I think we need to strengthen in other areas first. But look at him. Let's get over June first, because there's one question that come up in the chat, and we'll get to it in a second. I'll let Chris answer here, but it's about June and what's Keith's on thoughts on, do we have to sell someone before June?
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, no, he's a player of interest, and he would certainly bring many qualities to the Newcastle midfield. I mean, my only concern, I suppose, and we've already spoken about this, boys, is the fact that we seem to be like overloaded in central midfield. So someone would have to go. So whether that be a Willock, whether that be a Longstaff, whether it be an Anderson, who knows? But I kind of feel like we couldn't bring in an 8th central midfielder. Like that's the one position we actually look okay for now. So I think it would be someone leaving in order for us to bring someone like that in. But yeah, of course, he would definitely be a player of interest. I can do a shade.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I think they only bring in a midfielder if Longstaff goes. I think if Longstaff was to stay and they do agree a new deal with him, I think they just go with the complement they've got in midfield. I think that's probably the strongest part of the team at the moment. And I think it's pretty clear to everyone that a couple of defenders, a goalkeeper, and a striker and a right winger, depending what happens with Wilson and Almiron, is the positions we'll be looking at.
Yeah.
Just one, but before we just plug our promotions and our sponsors, one player that's definitely leaving, Ryan Fraser, reported to be agreed a deal with Southampton.
Yeah.
That one looking like it's done.
Yeah, I mean, like he's out of the picture now, as you know. I actually thought, do you know what? I actually had to check a couple of weeks ago when I was on holiday. I was watching the playoff final against Leeds and he was winning. I thought he was out of contract this summer. I didn't realise he had another year left. Unbelievable that he had another year left. But look, they've actually done well there to reach that agreement with Southampton, because that could have been another difficult situation for Newcastle with him. He could have dug his heels in. He's on big money, not huge money, but big enough money. Certainly he's on higher wages than what you would get in the Championship. Obviously, Newcastle have been paying a portion of his wages while he's at Southampton, but thankfully, because Southampton are going up and they get a lot more money for doing that, they can give him a Premier League wage, and he'll probably be earning more with Southampton than he was at Newcastle. So I think everyone's happy with the outcome from that. The last thing Newcastle would have wanted was Ryan Fraser hanging around the place for another year when he was essentially training with the academy kids. I'm just going to let the dog in because the dog's scratching at the door. I don't know.
Perfect timing, because Daz, go for it.
He's scratching at the door there. I didn't know, in case you're wondering what the noise was.
No hassle, Keith. We're just going to play this to give a shout out to our sponsors, Radiator Shed. And as Keith has gone to check his radiators, if they're in working order, if you need radiators, contact Russ at the Radiator Shed and russ@theradiatorshed.com or on the number 077-666-04112. Russ will sort you out. Just say loaded 20 and he will sort you out. More from our other sponsors at the end of the show. Do you want to go for a question, Pete? Because there's 50 questions. Maybe a bit of quick fire, just to bring us back on track. Scroll. Let me go all the way to the top. Osmond Diamande, Sporting Lisbon. Any chance we could go push the boat out and go for him?
Is that to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I've seen quite a lot of this guy. He looks the part. He looks like the sort of guy who would take Newcastle to the next level. I've seen his name mentioned. I think it's probably more just agent talk, to be honest. It's certainly not one that I've heard. And I think a lot of these links that are coming from foreign outlets, particularly for midfielders and attackers, there's a lot of journalists abroad who still feel that Newcastle have got all sorts of money to spend, and I would take them with a pinch of salt. So look, I don't know is my honest answer to that, but I'll go back to my last answer in terms of midfielders, and I just don't see them adding in midfield unless Sean Longstaff or Ian or Bruno goes. I think if one of those go, then all these midfielders can come to the table, and I think without doubt they'll bring one in and add one. But I think at this moment in time, it's so far down their priority list that I don't think it's anything that they're certainly looking at the moment.
Cool. Let's move a bit further up the pitch than the back line and go to Fernan Torres, who has been mentioned a lot today, and there's about 20 questions linked to him in the chat. Anything rumbling in the background on him, Keith?
I think that's another one of these. Sorry to say, I think that's another one of these ones that I've just mentioned at the moment, a moment ago. I think that's another one where agents probably try to link him to the club, and it's very unlikely to happen. Look, I think he's a player who would add something to Newcastle. He's got Premier League experience as well, but again, if they were to go for someone like him, I think it's only if they get rid of someone else first. And I think at the moment the priority for them is to try and lose someone to comply with PSR, and then they can start again at the beginning of July, and perhaps they might look at him then.
Okay, right. Let's go for an outgoing Target. Anyone interested in taking Target off our hands?
Not really, I don't think. I think there's some weird stuff out there that he's on $100,000 a week or something. I don't think that's
Please,
the case.
Please,
that
drives me mad.
I don't think that's the case. No, I really don't. I think he's on significant wages, but I don't think it's anything like that. I think he probably will get a move. He's probably one of these players. Is he a Premier League player? Is he a Championship player? Where does he fall within that bracket? I think as far as Newcastle are concerned, he was really good that first sort of 6 months to a year when he came in, but I think they found him, he's a little bit limited, compared to Dan Burn and Lewis Hall. Neither of those are an out-and-out left-back either, but I just don't think he gives the output physically and energy levels that Eddie Howe will look for. I expect him to go this summer, but it might be another one of these ones where they have to be creative with a loan deal, like what they did with Ryan Fraser, and they've had a number of them over the last couple of years, Isaac Hayden and things like that. It might be one of those deals. But I don't think he'll be hanging around. I think he'll go because he'll want to play football. Newcastle will probably just have to stump up a fair chunk of his wages wherever he goes.
Yeah. But Chris is encouraging me to put my theory towards you, Keith. And it was when we talked about in the show there during the week, with a number of clubs needing to sell before June, probably Newcastle, not Forest being one in the equation. Mm-hmm. Do you think it'd be possible for something to come for clubs to come together and do some kind of a deal where, let's say, Morgan Gibbs-White could come to Newcastle and Forest could take someone off our hands and a bit of cash either way, which would balance the books for
bit of money, a bit of money laundering. You mean that sounds?
I'm not alluding to that at all.
Yes, pretty much.
You stretch my back, I'll stretch yours, kind of thing. Yes.
I mean, listen, it's something I've not thought of before, but it sounds like a perfect scenario. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is someone the club would absolutely love. He falls into the exact category. I mean, he ripped Newcastle to shreds in Boxing Day, didn't he? Him and I think it was Alanga. They were brilliant. But I just Newcastle, unless they were to lose Bruno or Isak, they can't afford someone like him. They just wouldn't be able to afford him at the moment. If they can come to some kind of deal like you say there, where they scratch each other's back, but Newcastle, how can Newcastle help them? Newcastle could take Morgan Gibbs-White, but who would they take from Newcastle? Who are you suggesting? Almiron.
We're thinking Sean Longstaff, but you seem to.
Yeah, I don't think Forrest would be happy with that deal.
Miggy.
Listen, as much as Sean Longstaff's a good player, and I've said that already, Morgan Gibbs-White's probably at a different level, isn't he? And no, I think you're saying that. I think you're suggesting that through black and white tinted glasses.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is as well, Keith? Like when we've discussed it, like we're hearing a lot of rumours. Like you probably heard, the David Luiz going. Sorry, I keep saying David Luiz, Douglas Luiz going from Villa to Juve, and then getting Weston McKennie, and then we're hearing Chelsea talking about possibly getting rid of Gallagher to Villa, and then Chelsea spending 40-50 million on John Duran, and it's like, where's this coming from? Yeah. I suppose that's what we're thinking. And then
what you're saying is you weren't involved in that cycle as well.
I mean, as you know, Keith, when you buy a player, you can spread it over the period. Whereas when you sell a player, you get the money up front. And I'm not suggesting that's what clubs are doing, but it certainly you're hearing all these rumours. We're hearing Chelsea potentially offloading Brozier to Everton. And then you're thinking, so wherever soon, are Chelsea going to be linked with Branthwaite? Are they going to be linked with Banana? It just feels these clubs are pairing up.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've done a very good pitch to become the new sporting director of the club with that.
Yes.
I think that could probably get you the job if you suggested that. I know what you mean. It does look a little bit dodgy. It just feels Newcastle are trying to be squeaky clean in everything they do. I think I really think they're trying to do everything by the book because they know that. They know that they're sort of there to be knocked down, and it feels like that they're doing that. And you've got to say, of those clubs that you mentioned, are they really mates with any of those? Not really. But yeah, look, if they could do that, and there's a way around the rules, I think it's definitely something they should look at. And I have to say, I was a bit when I saw that Douglas Luiz deal, and I mean, there's no way Unai Emery wants to lose Douglas Luiz. And when you saw that deal, but he said, look, we need to sell someone. At the same time, they're bringing in two players from Juve. One of them I'd never heard of before. I thought that does sound a bit weird. So I don't know. Maybe you're onto something there, guys. But I'm afraid I don't have any intel on that.
Well, we've passed that message on to you. If you could quite kindly pass that on to the club when you next
get Chris to send his CV in as well, and I'll forward it on.
Do it. We've got some other links because I know time is precious, and I know we're coming to the end of having you with us. But there's some other links as well. We're going to touch on Morgan Gibbs-White, but you've touched on that one as well. Looking at the striker situation, you've mentioned obviously if Callum Wilson leaves, there has been a lot of links with the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Has been one that's been talked about this summer, as well as that. More recently, our name has been linked with, alongside other clubs, Tammy Abraham. So, he's looking like he wants to come back to England. I think Roma are looking and quite happy for him to come back. What do you make of the potential of Newcastle United bringing in either one of those players? Is there a chance?
Yeah, I think for Calvert-Lewin, look, I think they do like him. I think there's concerns over his injury record, but again, he's one of these players. If you look at most of the players Eddie Howe signs, most of them have played in the Premier League. Yes, there's the slight exceptions to the rule in Isak and Bruno, who obviously he just sees as a different level. And look, Tonali, and they've come in. Tonali aside, we've not seen him, but the other two they've proved to be like that. But someone like Calvert-Lewin, I think Luke is someone that it's someone that they do like. I don't think they would break the bank for him, but if they could get him in a cut price deal and Everton are desperate to sell, they might see value in a deal like that. In terms of Tammy Abraham, I hadn't heard that one, but I could see him fitting into. I mean, he's actually not dissimilar in the style to Isak, is he? He's that sort of rangy, leggy front man, good finisher, but can go past people. He's good in the air. He's tall. I could see that again because he's played here for a number of years as well. Another one that they look at. Without doubt, they're going to, if Callum Wilson goes, they'll bring in another centre forward. But Eddie Howe said something at a press conference towards the end of the season where he said, sometimes you can look at who you've got, and although it's important that you sell and comply with PSR, what if we sold Callum Wilson, what is it going to cost me to replace him? Yes, he's 32 years old. It's going to cost me 50, 60, 70 million pounds to replace someone like that in terms of his goals and his know-how and his experience in the league. So, for me, it's going to be a really interesting window. I don't see the wheels in motion really kicking in until after the Euros. I think we're probably going to have a quiet first couple of weeks. I think Kelly and Tosin were the two they wanted to get over the line early, and they'll be frustrated they've only managed to get one. But Calvert-Lewin, his name's come up in probably the last 4 transfer windows, and I have to say, whenever I've checked it out, I've never really been given anything positive back. I think he's a player that probably like, but I think the injury record is probably something they're weighing up as well. I know a couple of my colleagues have gone fairly strong on him. I've got to say, I still would be quite surprised. As much as I think they like him, given his injury record, I would still be surprised to see him at Newcastle.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. That's for sure. You look at fans are reading into the announcement of Adidas and the new kit, and not having the likes of Kieran Trippier, not having the likes of Callum Wilson in any of the sort of promotion photos, and then it's getting the discussion going, because they would be two players that you'd expect. The club captain Trippier and Callum Wilson's been a big figure, so it does kind of give us the opinion that their time at Newcastle United is potentially.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we've mentioned Wilson at length, but I think Trippier, we haven't mentioned him. Again, he's another one. I honestly think, as much as he brings a lot to the table with his experience and what he's like behind the scenes, excuse me, I think if an acceptable bid came in, although it was turned down in January, I think they would probably take it this summer. I do. I mean, he's coming to that stage in his career where if they can get money for him, it's a good deal. And although he probably doesn't want to leave, if a big money move came in for him where he was going to get significantly more money, I think he needs to look at it as well. So I think he is another one that's probably at risk this summer.
Interesting. Last one on the striker for me, Ivan Toney. We've talked about him potentially. That rumour mill with him going to Arsenal and lots of other clubs has gone really quiet recently, even to the point where it's reported that he could be going for as little as 40 million with 1 year left on his contract. I'm not saying are Newcastle interested, but would Newcastle look at potentially bringing him back?
I think they would love him. I think they would absolutely love him. He ticks every box that the manager would go for. And you've got to remember in all of this is when I say the club are looking for someone, Eddie Howe is the main decision maker. He's the one that's calling the shots. And that was why there was a little bit of a problem with Dan Ashworth, because I think Ashworth felt like he was maybe being sidelined a little bit, because Eddie makes pretty much all the big decisions in terms of players coming in. They need to be rubber stamped by him. Now, Yankuba Minteh was a player who wasn't rubber stamped by Eddie Howe, so there's no surprise to hear that the club probably would be open to offers for him. It feels like Howe makes his decision quite early on a player as to whether it's going to be someone that he wants or not. I think Toney, going back to your question, would be someone that he would love. I think you mentioned 40 mil. What's he got left a year, did you say, in his contract? I don't think Brentford would take that. I really don't. But obviously there will come a tipping point where they'll think, hang on, we don't want to lose him for free. Sorry, that's a dog. But I still feel he'll end up at Arsenal, Ivan Toney, I'm afraid to say. As much as he would be an unbelievable signing for Newcastle. Imagine your front two next season are Toney and Isak. It would be unbelievable. I still think he's probably got his sights set on, an Arsenal or a Liverpool or something like that, I feel. Although he's got unfinished business at Newcastle, he probably, it's his, he's getting on a bit. He's no youngster anymore. He probably wants to be playing in the Champions League.
Interesting. I know we're getting to it. We're at that time now. Have we got time for just 2 more quick questions?
Yeah, go on then.
Right. There's one in the chat that I just saw with regards to John. Isaac Hayden's contract. Any talk, any sort of confirmation that it is going to be kind of terminated?
Oh God, where are we with that? He's still got a bit left, hasn't he?
Still got a couple of years.
Yeah, unbelievable. He's one of these guys who got that new deal. Jacob Murphy got one as well just before the takeover happened. And obviously it's worked out for Murphy. He's dug in and he's managed to become part of the plans, but Hayden never really has. I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes out on loan again. You know, and Newcastle are paying a large chunk of his wages on loan. It's ridiculous that they've been left with this, saddled with this debt from the previous regime. But it was almost like Mike Ashley tried to make it difficult for the new owners when he came in. He started giving players these long deals, and you know, some of them were before he sold the club, and it was almost a bit of a reward to the players for sticking around. And then the others was just almost to make it difficult for the new owners, and they got saddled with all this. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know whether they'll rip up the contract or not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that or see him loaned out. One thing's for sure is he won't be part of the plans.
Yeah, definitely. And last one from us, from Peter Smart. What about the new sponsorships of training ground, training tops, etc.? And when will that be announced, and how much to be expected? I'm not saying you know the answers to that, but do you hear anything with regards?
Yeah, well, one of my best friends is in the commercial department, and he's done quite a lot of the deals recently. And I keep asking him these questions, and he never answers me. So, look, I'm surprised. Look, just looking at the overarching issue here, you know, I just feel 2.5 years after the takeover, the club should have moved quicker off the field. Although they're played in the Champions League, been in a cup final, buying, you know, and trading world-class players, buying Tonali, potentially selling Isak and Bruno in the next year or two, or wherever it may be. They're doing all that, and they're competing with AC Milan and Borussia Dortmund and PSG on the pitch. Behind the scenes at the club, despite the fact that some big figureheads been brought in, and the likes of Ashworth and Peter Silverstone and Darren Neals, the club's run very similarly behind the scenes. Like, the actual inner workings of the club is very similar to what it was pre-takeover. And for me, that's something that needed to be moved quicker. The commercial deals needed to be moved. I know it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but there were certain things they could have done regarding the training ground sponsorship, like you say there, to have really improved the club. But it feels like the on the field has moved so quickly, off the field has struggled to keep up with it. And that for me has been one of the sort of biggest issues over the last year and a half. The first year you can let them away with, but the last year and a half, they probably needed to get more executives and people in power and quicker, and they've not managed to do that. So work to be done there without a doubt. And I know the club are working really hard behind the scenes, but you know, football moves quickly, and I think you need to. I think they probably need to move quicker than what they have been.
Keith, just to follow up there, would it be prudent for Newcastle to wait, say, another 7 working days and find out what's the outcome of the Man City case, and maybe associated party transactions?
Well, is that when we're getting an answer? Is it?
Well, it's a 2-week arbitration.
Yeah,
it finishes at the end. Yeah, a week on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing's just a mess, isn't it? It's an absolute mess. I don't even know what a good outcome in that situation is anymore. But it seems to be the question that everyone's talking about right now. I don't know. I mean, just going back, just looking at Newcastle, though, I just think, although it would have only been the Conference League, just have stayed in Europe this season would really have helped. It would have really helped them just in terms of attracting players, keeping their name on the map. And I know that their name's on the map globally, playing in the Premier League, but just have, you know, if Newcastle had won the Conference League this season, they could have netted themselves, I think, about 25-30 million pounds, and that's not to be sniffed at, given the fact that they got 40 million pounds for being in the Champions League last season. So it was really frustrating the way that happened towards the end of the season. The Man City story thing, I'm not going to go into because I don't know enough about it, but it just I can see how frustrating it would be for you guys as supporters hearing of these charges and thinking what they've done over the last number of years, and thinking that, you know, Newcastle were taken over it's the most typical. I've said this before. It's the most typical Newcastle United thing. They're finally taken over by the richest group in the world, and they can't spend their money. If you'd been taken over when Man City were, 10 years ago, and you could have built yourself up to be like that, it's just so typical that you're doing it the other way around, and it's very frustrating that you're sat here still trying to rob Peter to pay Paul to get yourself through the transfer window when the Saudis have got all that money burning a hole in their pocket over in Riyadh.
Yeah, but we're building, and we're getting
that
negative. No. It allows us, Keith, to remember where we came from, and we were pulling our hair out with just barely staying up in the Premier League and playing in the Championship. So look, I think all of us as fans would take where we are right now, but obviously, of course, we see the bigger picture and where we want to get to. So it is a work in progress, as you've touched on.
It's
not
still
negative.
good fun, mate. It's still good fun. And what I'll say is, you guys are doing all these things now. I don't know how long you've had the podcast going on for, but there's so many of these things now, and there's very few of these pre-takeover. So everyone's engaged, everyone's enjoying themselves, everyone's looking forward to the new season, everyone's talking about transfers coming in. We wouldn't have been having this even though you've not got a lot of money to spend, given the PSR restrictions. We wouldn't have been having this conversation 3 years ago. We wouldn't have been. Everyone would have just been angry and frustrated. So, small mercies. Although you can't spend all their money, small mercies and all that. At least you're in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for taking the time.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
You take care, mate. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Keith.
If you haven't already, make sure you check out Keith's YouTube channel. It's a fantastic channel. He gives lots of updates of all things Newcastle United. So make sure you get involved in that and give it a subscribe as well. Brilliant to have Keith on. Lots of talk, lots of interest, lots of players discussed. We even got some breaking news, boys. If you're joining us or you came in late and watching the show and you missed it, Keith got confirmation whilst on with us that Lloyd Kelly's medical has been completed. He has completed the medical, all thumbs up, good to go. We are now, as Keith said, just waiting for the shirt unveil and the official announcement of Lloyd Kelly as a Newcastle United player. So great stuff there. And thank you for Keith for allowing us to be a part of that sort of breaking news, which is great to have. We're not done yet, though. We've got a members draw to do. So all you members, you've got an opportunity to win here. So don't go anywhere. But boys, great chat. That covered lots of Newcastle United content there.
Brilliant.
Sure did. Do you want to do the members draw now and get it? Because I will forget otherwise. And while my internet's still running. Here we go.
Members draw. Here we go.
Spinny wheel.
There's
Love the spinny wheel.
135 members in the draw. Chris, what's up for grabs tonight?
So we haven't done a members draw for a while, but yeah, the members draw today is going to be for a £50 club voucher. And we all know what's been released recently, so I'm sure that £50 can go towards something nice in the Adidas range, or Adidas range, as everyone refers to it as. So yeah, a £50 club voucher. So Daz, I reckon it's time we hit that wheel.
Spin that wheel. Here we go.
Best of luck, everyone. Best of luck.
Who's it gonna be?
Bill Burnett. Congratulations, Bill.
Bill. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Well done, Bill.
Nice one.
Love it.
So contact us, Bill, or contact any of us, and we'll put you in touch with Chris, and we can get that sent out to you.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Well done, Bill.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I've literally just seen Bill in the chat as well. Bill literally put a comment up just before. I've just seen his message. Yeah. So Bill's going to have seen that. I hope he's seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, let us know if you've seen it, Bill, if you're still in the chat.
Put another comment in the chat. There
There he
we
is.
go.
Yay!
Yes,
Get in. So
Get in, Bill.
love
Get
it
in.
when we have our ultra in the chat when they win a prize. So we know that so contact Danny was Bill, and we'll sort it out. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Where are we going next, lads? And the amount of questions, apologies. There's still about 30 questions there that we couldn't put to, then so many names put to try and put towards Keith, but we only have him for a limited time. We don't have him for another 3 hours to go put everything towards him. But thanks for that.
Definitely. I mean, we covered so much today. If there's anything in the questions it's worth bringing up as a topic, we'll definitely take a few before we wrap up the show.
Okay. Let me. I haven't seen this one. I haven't seen the rumors of Archie Gray. I know we talked about it, but I haven't seen any concrete rumors. Have you?
Nothing, certainly not from Newcastle. To be fair, actually, that's a really interesting point because obviously Leeds didn't go up, and they're still in the Championship, but there's been nothing from him. So I've certainly not seen any links. There was some tentative links in the build-up to the playoff final, but then since the playoff final, there's kind of been nothing. So could it be what Keith kind of alluded to? Newcastle United are getting their business done with the likes of Lloyd Kelly, with the likes of potentially James Trafford, who looks like it could be next on the list, and then really attacking sort of July once the Euros is done. Could that be potentially the move then?
Just to add in as well, Pete. Funnily enough, I was talking to someone about this today. I think it was someone in work, and we were saying, about links. All you hear at the moment is about Somerville. When it comes to Leeds, all you hear about is about Somerville. Archie Gray's gone really quiet, and correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't Archie Gray filled in at right back as well for Leeds? So again, it's another option for that right back position, because we were saying, weren't we? If Trippier goes, we've got Tino and we've got Kraft, and people are saying that Harrison Ashby will probably be moved on. Wouldn't it be great if we're talking about versatility? Wouldn't it be great to bring in someone like him who we know can play? I'm sure he can play right back. I'm sure he can.
I've not seen him play right back personally. I've only ever seen him play sort of in that midfield berth. But as we've always said, mate, versatility, being flexible, playing in more than one position. And Bill is getting a new Newcastle United shirt. Love it.
Nice one, Bill.
Love it.
Send us a picture.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, you have to, Bill. You have to.
Picture. We'll get it on there. That's for sure. But no, it's a great question with regards to that and that versatility. Yeah, good one. That one to keep an eye on for our for load of transfer shows moving forward. Yeah. Archie Gray. Thank you for that.
Where did this come from? Because Steve puts this up. Connor Cody being linked again.
Yeah,
that's weird. That's unusual.
I haven't seen a direct link.
Neither have I.
However, I've seen people react to it. So I saw a GIF from somebody the other day of Connor Cody, and like it was a Newcastle account. I can't remember what Newcastle account it was, but I saw a Newcastle account with the Connor Cody GIF, and I just kind of kept scrolling until I was like, surely not. Like he barely got a game for Leicester last season in the Championship. Like, so I didn't think anything of it, but boys, I don't see that happening. Come on. Surely.
All I'd say is, I must admit, I'd get quite excited. Not if Connor Cody signs, but I'd get quite excited if we brought in Connor Cody, because that tells me that we're putting all of our money in that right winger position. Because if we're bringing in Connor Cody for the year or 6 months or however long it would be, clearly we don't want to spend any money on the centre back position. We want to obviously spend our money either central midfield, either right wing, striker. That's clearly where the money's going, or maybe even goalkeeper. I don't know. But clearly, maybe because we obviously, as Keith alluded to before, we were hoping not to spend any money on the right back position, right centre back position, because we were hoping to get Tosin Adebayo, which didn't happen. So if we were to bring in Connor Cody, then surely the money's being kept for somewhere else, and hopefully a big one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I'd be excited about the money that we would be spending, but not gonna lie, I wouldn't be thrilled with it. Maybe coming in.
Not on the side.
Not as thrilled as you. Yeah. But no, but I see why you're saying it. Like it would be positive because of the money that it'd be invested, like you mentioned.
I can see that reaction show, Pete. Me and you would be doom and gloom, and Chris would be bouncing around the place.
I'd be saying we're getting Elise or we're getting Neto or something, because I would expect that type of signing if we sign Conor Coady. Because boys, Conor Coady's way off. He's way off of the standards. But the fact that we were bringing in him for such a little price, he's slowly dropping down the teams, isn't he? So if we were to bring in someone like him, that tells you that we're putting all of our budget, pretty much, I would say, on a right winger or a striker. So that's why I'm saying I'd be excited, because we must be putting big money on someone. I'm
surprised you didn't have him in your luxury tax show, Chris.
Yeah.
And another name, and I know, Pete, you have some information on this one as well, is Guendouzi. Any thoughts there on that one?
Yeah, there has been some sort of links there. Get Italian football, obviously, is at Lazio at the moment. Newcastle United and Villa are interested in Guendouzi. Now, I have to say, he didn't have the best of seasons last season. He wasn't at the level that we have seen him previously. So when he was at Marseille, for me, he was a player that I mentioned on the Fulham transfer shows way back. I was there. I'd love to have him at Newcastle United. I was disappointed when he went to Italy, but not at the best of seasons. Doesn't mean that he's not at the level. I believe he's around sort of 25 years old. So great age. But yeah, interesting to see his linked. Now, for me, I think with all the situation with Villa's midfield situation, Douglas Luiz, all the rest of it, it's probably oh, hold on. It's all right. I'll talk to you boys afterwards. But it was probably just likely to move to Aston Villa if it was between the two of us, just because there are little gaps there. However, I wouldn't mind him. I think he's better than Longstaff, which is my bar at the moment. I'm looking at a midfielder coming in. Are they better than Sean Longstaff? And that's it for me.
Yeah, Pete, you're not going to encourage me to ask you a leading question like I did to I was going to say to Pete Graves, to Keith Downie, are you?
No. But what I'm going to try and do, because I'm just messaging at the moment. There's a question on there that we didn't quite ask. I'm going to try and see if I can get an answer to it now from Keith.
Let him have his dinner.
Working offline, I like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna drop him a message. 1 second. I'll see if we can get it live. The response, if he's able to.
Yeah.
What
be with a couple does. If there's any there.
Okay. Look, I want to maybe Anne asked this question, and maybe we can explain it a bit for her. She asked, "How do we need to sell if we're about to sign a goalkeeper?" So it's all about PSR. So whatever if we sell someone now, it will go immediately into our books and into our PSR pot, let's say. But if we sign someone like the goalkeeper or whoever, then that goes into next year's books, and it's spread over the lifetime of the contract and amortized for the duration of the contract. I know I'm explaining it really crap, but that's why what allows us that we can go look to try and purchase someone, but also at the same time we also all the talk is that we need to sell someone as well, just to balance the books before the end of June. So that answers that one, I think.
Yeah. No, I think balances.
Yes, while you're still waiting on an answer there, Pete, I want to tell people what's happening tomorrow, because at 7:30 tomorrow, Loaded are back again. Pete, talk us through this one.
Yes, we've got an old friend coming back to join us again. Ollie Hawkins of the NUFC blog is coming to join us. We had a great chat with him last summer, a really good chat around all things Newcastle United transfers. And yeah, he's coming back to return to talk all things transfers again. A number of things they've reported on, so we'll get the lowdown of all things NUFC blog and what Ollie and the team have been putting together over there. So it'd be great to catch up. It's been a year. It's crazy. Like,
yeah, it's gone quick. That.
Yeah, it's gone quick. So yeah, looking forward to that one. 7:30. Make sure you're there.
Okay. I think that's it. We want to give a shout out to manscaped.com as well, and I'm scrolling across the bottom of the screen as well. If you use that code loaded20, you get 20% off and free delivery across all the Manscaped range. So go check that out, and the code still works. So why not give it a go? I think we're wrapping up, boys. Still waiting for an answer.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get one in time to end the show. So it might just be you, Daz, and you, Chris, that benefit from this.
Maybe we can reveal it tomorrow on the. So if you tune into the Ollie Hawkins show tomorrow, we can tell you the update.
Yeah, there we go. Spot on.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess there's only one thing left to say is, how'd you like that? Good night, everyone.
How you like?